right. We are live. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. We had hundreds of you RSVP for today's event. So before we begin, would love to know where you all are joining us from and then a little bit about you. When you RSVP'd, you had the opportunity to submit questions, but you didn't share who you are or what these questions are relevant to in terms of who your business or who your brand is or what your brand is. So tell us who you are and tell us where you're joining from. Would love to shout you out as I'm going through some of these questions. Speaking of questions, when you RSVP'd, you submitted them, but that doesn't mean you can't ask them live. I will be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions in real time, feel free to pop those in specifically for Allie or Rebecca. Today, we're going to be talking about everything from, what's that saying? 30,000 feet, all the way down to the tangible in the weeds conversations about fundraising, investing, team building, community building, so on and so forth. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Avery Bradford. I'm head of programming and events for Female Founder Collective and the 10th House. When I was looking through RSVPs, I noticed not a lot of familiar names. I met a lot of you at Female Founders Day about a week and a half ago, which was an incredible event, a full day of programming with keynotes like Sarah Blakely and Bethany Frankel, those conversations moderated by our co-founders who we're talking to today. And if you're interested in more events like this, where we give you FaceTime with founders, funders, people who are operators, streamliners inside of your business, I really highly encourage you to apply to join the 10th House. Today is the last day to apply to our wellness and health cohort. So if you're looking to build, scale, and thrive, you're looking for access to not only our community members, but like I said, our operators, funders, and founders, I really encourage you to go to the 10th house.femalefoundercollective.com and you will see how to apply there. Today is the last day to apply. We are meeting you all at orientation tomorrow. I believe that's tomorrow. Maybe it's Thursday. So don't miss your opportunity to apply. And the 10th House is our private membership community. So it's based on a industry basis. So right now we're focused on wellness, health. That's everything from gyms to supplements to really anything that makes you a happy, healthier person. So hope to see you inside of orientation tomorrow. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce our co-founders, Allie Wyatt. She's the CEO of the 10th House, the North and Female Founder Collective. She's also a former CRO. She's an angel investor, among many other things. We also have Rebecca Minkoff, who is the co-founder of the 10th House and Female Founder Collective. She's also the creator and designer of her namesake brand. She's an author. She's a podcaster. She's a mother. She is, so many amazing, beautiful things. Welcome, ladies, and thank you for being here with me today.
Good to be here. Good to be here. I was telling both Rebecca and Avery that I'll be on and off mute. My kids are on spring break and there are some very interesting noises happening in the background and lots of naked children running around.
Lots of cool time. Okay, amazing. So let's start out with a question from Jessica. And this question is about scaling. And that is, how can a brand that's making $4K a month scale to $10K online? This is specifically a jewelry brand. So Rebecca, I'd love to start with you from a fashion perspective and then open it up to Allie.
I would definitely say that building your email list is going to be key to your sales growth. The bigger your list, the more new eyeballs you're going to hit. And if you are having trouble figuring out how to get people to sign up, I would say, as a brand new brand, lean on your network. Who are 10 friends who can each give you 10 emails and, do they get a special discount code? But how do you incentivize your immediate community and your immediate customers who have purchased from you, who are happy and satisfied, to then spread the word? And what can you tokenize for them to do that? So you need to build your list. If you have 200 emails and you're doing 4,000 a month, imagine, you probably need to more than double it to get that. And then I would look into, and I'm not sure if they do scalable pricing, but there are places like ShopMy that, you can do very targeted influencer gifting and they are incentivized by a rev share. The pricing, I know, let's say we pay 30 grand a year. So it might be too expensive for a business like yours unless they do sliding scale pricing. But that's another way to monetize influencers, not just hoping they post, but they're actually posting with a link that'll drive traffic to your site. And then last but not least, TikTok shops. If you can get on it and get people selling for you, that is a great way to build your business.
So helpful. I feel like people are writing down those exact names right now. And don't worry, this is being recorded. And if you are a member of the 10th house, I'll post the replay inside the membership probably by the end of today. Allie, I have a great question for you, and that's about transitioning from corporate to owning a business. So this question is from Erica M, and that is for Allie, as someone transitioning from a long corporate career to founding my own business, what mindset shifts or habits were most crucial for stepping into the founder role with confidence and clarity?
So I have to say, when you're shifting from corporate to founder status or startup status, it's really it's a challenging thing. I don't think you quite understand the breadth of how big of a culture shift it honestly is. And so what I would say from a mindset perspective is just expect the unexpected and give yourself grace. It's all about the time. For me, it took 6 months approximately to make that transition. And then after those 6 months, I never looked back. I'm like, I could never be a corporate citizen again. Um, I would say is expect that you're going to have no resources, right? Like when you're in corporate, I think something that's very sort of synonymous with being in corporate is having these big teams and lots of resources around you. So there's somebody that puts together the decks. There's somebody that, you know, if it's social media, you have like a 5-person social media team that's putting together all those assets. They're doing the video. Just expect that you will have none of that. And so you have to have a plan in place of, I'm not going to try to do all those things. You can't be who you were in corporate. You're not going to accomplish the same amount of things that you did in corporate. You can do things in different ways. So make a plan for what are the top priorities of things that I want to get done, and acknowledge that you also can't do it all. And what are the things that you're really efficient at doing, right? Like what are those things that you do really quickly and you're like, I could do it in my sleep. And then what are the things that frankly are going to be something that takes you a lot longer to do than it might take somebody else? And then hire interns, or get people that are in college and they just want some of that experience. That's my recommendation, because you're going to see very quickly that you're like, wow, there's a whole lot of nothing when it comes to being able to reach out to somebody to get help.
I love that advice, and we'll get deeper into team here in a little bit, but I feel like that list of, strengths and what you want to accomplish is really helpful, especially in a situation like you and Rebecca have, where you have a co-founder to sort of play off of those strengths and weaknesses. I'm going to take a turn into funding, financing, and investing because we got a ton of questions about all of these things. This first question is for you, Rebecca, and this is from Stacy S. Can you talk more about financing? How did you structure your businesses in terms of, did you go with loans? Did you use your own savings? And then this is sort of a part 2 and a bigger question, but did that change during downturns?
Yeah, so we actually primarily funded the business at first on a credit card. My brother's Amex, which I think at the time he could go up to $250,000. Then there was a credit line on his other company that was not being used. We utilized that. I think that was $100K. Then he mortgaged his house. I'm not saying you should do these things, but there are things you can do if you feel like you have a rocket ship. I would never suggest this to anyone who does not have a proven product. But the sales for us were going up and up and up and up. It's not like we use this money to launch a product with no traction. When we got to a little over $500,000, that is when we got purchase order financing. There are still companies out there. One of them is called Rosenthal and Rosenthal. Another one is called Hilden. I'm sure you can, according to your space, see if they cover your arena, but they basically loan on large orders from wholesalers. What's nice about them is they also do credit checks. So for a long time, we couldn't ship to a big retailer because they weren't paying their bills. So you at least know you're also probably more likely to get paid. And so that was how we sort of bridged that gap until we reached a point where We knew if we wanted to invest in brick and mortar or launch new categories, that was when we went to private equity. So that was all good. What I would caution you is during a downturn, when you need help the most, you think you can go to your partners and get it. In our scenario, our partners were like, sorry, we can't help you. And so it was really up to us to either find new sources of funding, more loans. And the landscape is very different now, but I think you should always raise money when you don't need it. If you are going to raise money, keep a kitty for those times when it is going to get tough, and make sure that whoever you bring on as partners are also going to be in the boat when it gets hard. So for 2 different private equity firms to basically tell us when we needed a bridge loan, sorry, we don't do that and we can't help you, was sort of like, well, then why are you our partners? Like I basically said to them, would you rather just us go out of business? Is that better for you? And they didn't really have an answer for that. So I think you just should make sure you ask your partners if you're going to get them those tough questions when things do get hard.
And that perfectly answers the next question that we had, which was from Belinda about when do you know it is the right time to start seeking funding, and how to determine which funding is right for you. I think you mentioned something that's really important about finding the right partners. Are there questions you wish you would have asked before making those partnerships?
I think I would have asked them, what is it like when there are downturns? How do you help and support your founders? You know, obviously this is hindsight, but probably 2 or 3 years into our journey with private equity, the sentiment changed, and in order to get more investment, people wanted you to be profitable. But the first private equity people said, we don't care about profitability. So I would definitely say, like, what are your KPIs for success? Is it profitability? Is it just growth? I think the other thing that would be key to answer is, when we signed with one of these firms, they had something called drag rights that they could exercise in 7 years. You guys should all look up what a drag right is. It's a very key term. And my brother and I at the time said, 7 years is a really long time. We're going to have sold the company by then. But we hadn't. And then they had the opportunity to sell the whole company for whatever price they wanted. They could have sold it for what they bought it for plus $1, and we wouldn't have gotten anything. And so it's always really critical to know what you're signing, how long you're signing it for, and what these people want, because they want an exit in 7 years. And that might not be what is best for your business.
One follow-up note to that, I think a lot of times you outsource the terms of a deal to your attorneys entirely, and you're not really sure what they mean. Always ask and do your own homework as well, because attorneys are great, but you don't know what you don't know. So if you're not directing them in a certain way of the specific terms that you want, then you might end up in a really bad situation. So I can't emphasize what Rebecca said enough. And just to note that, like, you really need to do your own homework and understand these terms.
I want to switch gears because VC isn't right for everyone. So I want to talk a little bit about angel investing. And Allie, these next couple of questions are for you from both perspectives, as an angel investor and then someone who may be seeking angel funding. So just curious, this question is from Amy F. How did you become an angel investor? And what were those first initial steps to become an angel investor?
So it's actually relatively easy to become an angel investor. You just have to be accredited. And even sometimes people don't check on that. I would highly recommend, if you are not accredited, to not invest, because angel investing is so risky. It is very rare that you're going to make your money back unless you absolutely know what you're doing. I got lucky on my first couple investments. The way that I got into investing is that I was working as a chief revenue officer. At the time, I was at Refinery 29, and I was actually in charge of bringing in these new technologies that could give us these ancillary revenue lines in our company. And so I was seeing a lot of universal shopping cart technology, because we wanted to really invest in affiliate as a business and be almost like a marketplace. So I had met like 10 different companies, and I finally met this one guy who had developed something called Cosmic Heart at the time. And I was like, this is definitely the best technology that I've seen. And I had direct comps, right? And we were going to use it for Refinery 29. And I loved the technology so much that I was like, I want to invest in this myself. And I was like, are you raising capital? And he said, yes. I actually ended up exiting on that business, but it's also a technology business. So, technology, particularly ones where you already see high adoption of companies like ours, are great places to start. Um, but I also, after that, I was advising a lot of consumer businesses as well. And so I knew people in the industry, and I actually started wanting to back founders specifically. So I would sit down with these founders and be so impressed with their vision, be so impressed with um, really the strategies that they had laid out and the way that in which they were executing, that I was able to ask them it when they would be raising capital. Sometimes they wouldn't be, but they're like, listen, I'm going to call you as soon as I know that this deal, or as soon as I do start to raise. It might be 6 months from now, it might be a year from now. So it's really just having those conversations. And I really recommend, if you are going to starting in your zone of genius, starting in the area where you have expertise, so that you can really do diligence yourself on whether or not this is a good company. Invest alongside other angel investors, or ideally institutional investors. By institutional investors, I mean funds, because they're doing their own diligence, and they will sometimes let you in on, here's what we're looking at. These are the kind of terms we want. Um, these are the benchmarks that we have. And so you'll learn from people that are already experts, because I really don't recommend putting your money behind something unless you have as much clarity as possible on where that business could go, because it's the odds are just so stacked against you that you have to get as much of a competitive advantage as possible.
Yeah. And this is all so helpful, and it reminded me that next week, next Thursday, we have a event specifically about boutique VC and angel investors. It's for 10th house members only. So if you are a member, I really encourage you to join that. If this conversation is bringing up some either green flags or red flags for you, or just even question marks, a lot of those will be answered during that members only workshop next Thursday. Ali, I want to have one more follow up about that, and that's from the founder, from the brand side. Why is it so hard for startups without revenue to gain access to angel investors? And this question is from Karen F.
So it depends, honestly. That tends to be very true when it comes to consumer brands. And that is because there's so much that happens in between pre-revenue and pre-product to actually getting traction, getting revenue, being in the door, having proof of concept for your specific product. So that's why I would say for consumer brands, it's really tough, because a lot of VCs honestly have been burned. They're not bad people. They need to wait until later, because a lot of the sort of shakeouts for consumer brands, and on the ones that will make it versus not, happen in those early years. And honestly, the funding sources that are better for that are the ones that Rebecca was talking about earlier, right? Like where you really, it's not, VC is not made for consumer brand businesses. The model doesn't work. So when it comes to, on the flip of that, a lot of technology companies will get investment pre-revenue. And the reason for that is because their business is such that it's infinitely scalable. If you're thinking about whether or not you want to go out to seek VC funding, you should think, am I easily, and when I say easily, I mean like it should be pretty obvious, am I a $1 billion plus business potentially? Like, could my business get that big? Um, and if the answer is definitely not, then don't go out and get VC funding. If the answer is maybe, then do further exploration to see how big your business could potentially get. But if it's definitely, you're probably in a category like tech. So you will see funds, investing behind pre-revenue businesses and technology. And that's usually because they're investing behind a particular team. That team has maybe proven themselves before. They might have certain IP already established that you can't find anywhere else and that's protected. There's all sorts of reasons that technology businesses are able to raise capital before they actually have revenue. But generally, as a practice, because of all the things I just mentioned, it's not, you're not seeing it as much anymore.
And you mentioned consumer, and this leads me perfectly into our next question for Rebecca. And I'm shifting now into marketing, consumer trends, and sales growth. And this question for you, Rebecca, is given the evolving economic landscape, what are the biggest consumer behavior shifts you foresee in 2024, and how should brands adapt their marketing and pricing strategies accordingly?
Foresee in 2025, or that I saw in
2025, yes.
Okay. I think that there is a big evolution happening with the sad and slow death of wholesale. I don't know what's going to replace it. Today it's TikTok shops, but what will that be? How will the future of video shopping evolve? I think people are going to be investing in that in a big way. And I think it's back to that. It's much more work, but that one-to-one, in-person pop-up experiences or smaller, multi-branded stores that are very curated and edited. Even smaller, if you can't afford, New York City real estate or whatever, very small footprint stores in high traffic areas with very, very tight amounts of product. That worked for us better than any of our bigger stores that we had. Was 5 SKUs and 1,000 square feet when we last were in retail. So I think how we're, there's two things happening. There's the biggest wealth transfer that's about to occur. Most of that money going to more women. So older women are going to have a lot more disposable income. Where are they going to be spending that? Is it luxury? That market is struggling. So, how do you get in front of these older women now who have a lot of money? And then if you want to come up with the young ones, what is that opening price point, differentiator that allows you to reach Gen Z as they have their mama's credit cards? So, trying to be both ends of the spectrum is extraordinarily hard, but I think some brands can bridge that gap and have. And it's just about how you tailor your creative. And I think AI is going to help a lot with that you're sending different messages to different people for different products according to who they are in their psychographic. And I think if whoever can figure out that very quickly will win in retail.
Amazing. I just got so distracted because we have someone joining from Iowa, which I'm from Iowa, and I don't think ever in my 4 or 5 years of being here have I seen another Iowan in the room. So welcome, Kelly. This is a follow-up question for you, Rebecca, from Sophie B, and that is for brands looking to grow their online sales, because we talked about moving away from wholesale retail. From their online sales today, given the high cost of acquisition, what advice and tools do you recommend to get off the ground specifically?
Tupperware parties. It's time to go old school. Get the most influential woman in your town to throw a party for you, bring your stuff, have them invite their friends. And it's how I started. Would do these wine and cheese parties at my friend's house, and she'd bring all her gals and I'd leave with cash and all the bags would be gone. You can't underestimate the one-to-one touch point, especially when you're starting. It's where not only do you get to meet your first customers, you get to hear direct feedback. It's a lot more time intensive in consuming, but it is worth it. If you're a brand that can travel, it's also worth it to sort of do that across different parts. Pick an urban city, pick a non-urban city. You're going to have entirely different customers, entirely different feedback. And I think the more you get to know your customer in the early years, the better. You can't automate everything, and you can't make everything from a computer. You have to get out there and meet this live human person and hear from them.
Yeah. And this, Allie, I would love your thoughts on this. And we have another Iowa person in the house from Quad Cities. Alison said yes to Tupperware parties. Absolutely. Another person says, we did legacy party for the end of life planning, and it was honestly so helpful. Danielle says, thank you for highlighting that wealth shift. Yeah, so much great advice happening here today. Allie, what are your thoughts on effective ways to get new customers? Rebecca mentioned Tupperware parties, in-person events, local activations. Do you have anything to add here specifically for someone who's
Yeah.
scrapping?
Well, I think for the local events, just to sort of go deeper on that, one thing that I've seen friends who have businesses do, and also members, is that you do collaborative events, right? So you partner up with. There was somebody, for example, there was a new store that was opening in Los Angeles, and the new store needed obviously to let people know that they had people that they were there. And then a friend of mine had a jewelry company, and she was like, you guys don't carry jewelry. It's a very synergistic product, similar price points. I would love to come do a trunk show. I'm going to invite a number of people. And then you have hosts. So this happens actually a lot in Los Angeles. I think probably in other markets too, where there will be 4 hosts, and each of those hosts is responsible for bringing a certain number of people. And then also, in addition to that, the brands that are participating, so it might be a trunk show of 3 different brands, they're sending it out to their whole database. So you're getting database acquisition, you're getting the in-person component, and then you're getting people to select for you, here are the exact type of people that would be the right customer for this brand, right? So they're sort of doing the work on your behalf. So it's Rebecca's Tupperware parties concept, but it's sort of this hosting process and collaborating with other companies. To that note, I think you can do the same thing with social media, right? Is you can reach out to brands that have synergistic offerings and do collaborative social posts. Maybe you have giveaways of some sort for them to sign up for your email list. I think going back to what Rebecca said about the email list, that should be, if you have no other focus when you are initially starting out with a consumer business, it should be building your email list, because those are the only people that you really truly own and can continuously communicate with to drive ongoing sales, right? So you want to figure out the best way possible to get people into that funnel, so that you can communicate with them whenever you have a new product launch, or you're doing a discount, or you have an event. Those are going to be your most loyal customers that come again and again.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question about collaborations and partnerships in just a moment, Allie, but we have one, also a follow-up for you, Rebecca, and this is from Jessica. She says, a follow-up question: what if many young ladies, like in their mid-20s to early 30s, show interest in the product, but once I say it's, a $50 bracelet, then they walk away? How do you deal with price sensitivity?
I think you have to survey early on, what your customer, your real customer, actually can afford and pay for. We could all have the I mentored a woman who had a luxury handbag product at $800, but she didn't have while the product was beautiful, she didn't have the wherewithal to shoot it like it should be luxury, to place it in stores that would carry that price point. So I said, you know what, you might not be able to make it this price. You might have to ask your customer and survey not only your customer, but other people, like what would be a proper price for that bag with what you can offer a woman today. So I think once you've gotten your costs sort of sorted out, and you're making sure you have the right margin, there's going to be 2 scenarios. There's going to be the one where that is perfect. It's the right price. It's the right margin. And then there's it's not quite the right price. It's not quite the right margin. Can I lower it, make a little less margin for now until I scale and get enough quantity that I can go back to a factory and get a discount based on quantity? And you can get all those questions answered in advance. We knew that if we made our handbags $195, it would hurt for a while. But if we got to 10,000 units, we could go back and negotiate a price on a bag that would make our margin what it needed to be, even though we were going to go through some months of pain. And so I would sort of look at it like, who do you want to serve? What are your competitors doing in that space? That's really important. If you're selling a white shirt and someone's selling it for $20 less than you might be shit out of luck. So I think it's just taking all those things into consideration.
So helpful. And you mentioned manufacturing. I believe we got a question about that, which I'll get to later. But Ali, I wanted to go back to your previous point on collaborations and partnerships. And this question is from Robin T. And it says, you've built and scaled brands that deeply resonate with their audience, particularly through partnerships and storytelling. What strategies would you recommend for positioning yourself for strong brand partnerships?
So I think a big mistake that people make is that they go into brand partnerships with a me focus, where you have to go in and know what you want from the partner on the other side, right? Like have a sense of maybe some previous collaborations that they've done or who you think their exact customer profile is and why that resonates with you as well, but also what can you do for them? Like always have something in your back pocket that you can actually do for the partner across the table. And you might say, I'm a small business, like how am I going to be able to do something for a partner? You can always do something that's going to be beneficial for their business. So you might have an even higher priced product than they do, right? You might be a luxury brand and they are more in the sort of aspirational category. So you could bring in a super high-end customer to their customer base. Or maybe you have maybe you're really good with social media and you actually have on your own sort of social media profile that has more significant reach or like a very engaged person that is following you, right? There's always something that you can offer to them and you need to really lead with that and also lead with the things that you have observed that they need. And then have a conversation. Start it off as a conversation of, I have observed this, but I would like to hear from you. What are your business goals? And then come up with this is what the partnership could look like. But if it isn't servicing their business goals in addition to yours, the partnership's never going to work because they're not going to want to put resources behind it. But also, it might not even get past the starting line because they're looking at it and going, what's in it for me? So you always have to think of what's in it for them, what's in it for me, and how can we together create something much larger and more impactful.
That's so helpful. What's in it for them? What's in it for me? And Rebecca, you said something earlier too about you were mentoring and advising someone. I know that that can be really helpful too for introductions and networking. Um, and if you are interested in mentorship and advising, I definitely encourage you to go to the North, where we have almost 200 advisors for you to choose from. Rebecca, this next question is for you, and it's from Maya A. It says, Rebecca, what are the common mistakes to avoid when scaling supply to a warehouse?
Scaling supply to a warehouse. They get you on so many different things. Do you want to use our boxes? Do you want to use our tape? Oh, rush orders this. Oh, guess what? When we unpack your stuff and put it back, there's this. So be aware of all the hidden fees that come with a warehouse. Oftentimes, they're obviously able to take advantage of lowered rates because they're shipping for many, many brands. But make sure you truly understand the cost of shipping. And honestly, if you are an up and coming brand and you can't afford to make free shipping for your customer, I'm getting charged left and right from big brands now. It's not a terrible thing if you need to offset that cost. Some people really don't recommend it, but I think there's only a certain amount of money you can spend each year for that experience. And I think it's getting quite insane. So I would say make sure you know about all the hidden costs, and make sure you have a really good point of contact so that you're not lost in the sea of brands. You might say, well, I'm small, no one's going to pay attention to me. You can go in there and, demand, I'm small, I need you to pay attention to me because I don't want to get lost or get pushed to the end of the month because they're busy shipping a big department store order for a bigger brand. These are all things that can happen at a warehouse. So find your point person and make sure that they're signing on to take you under their wing as well.
I feel like you've mentioned several things now that it's very important for you to advocate for yourself, whether that be with your funding partners, with your warehouse partners, whatever it is. I'm noticing that as a common thread. And I feel like that might be a part of your answer here, but we're getting in the chat from Nicole A. What were some of the first moves you made that truly shifted your business from early early traction to sustainably scalable, something that you could actually scale?
Lowering our prices during a recession, again, throwing margin out the window and saying, our same customer just experienced, the biggest financial crash at that time, and doesn't have those disposable income that she did before. So we moved with her, even though we knew it would set us back many years in terms of profitable growth. So I think there's a way to sort of understand your customer and what she's needing and going through. Again, when you're meeting her one-to-one, you have a lot more insight than any computer could ever tell you. And I would say that I'm spacing out, and I need you to ask me the question again because I lost my train of thought.
Sustainably
Sustainable. What I would say is, do not get hooked on the drug of I need a raise, I need to keep raising, I need to keep raising. I don't think any new business that is small and growing should raise. Figure out your profit margin, figure out how to grow profitably and slower. Get a hero product that you know is winning and working and selling, and you can't keep it off the shelf. That is a lot more exciting of an opportunity for an angel investor or your seed stage than something that's like, well, maybe people will like my cream. I don't know. And I think that, just don't get hooked on this distraction that it can be. When my brother would have to go raise, he was taken off his role as CEO, and we missed things growth-wise because he was focused on a raise. So it can seem like the easier option, and often it solves what you think is a painful issue, but then there's always more pain. So don't be scared of pain in business. It's just different forms of it at different times.
Yeah, very true. We talked about strengths and weaknesses. We talked about interns. We talked about advocating for yourself. We talked about having the right partners. This next question goes along with all of that. And this is for you, Allie. What are the best tips on where to find team members when you are early stage? And maybe who some of those team members should be?
So I love this question because I feel like this is the first thing that I always do when starting a business. And that's that you focus on, first off, yourself, right? What do you want to do in the business? Where do you think you're going to be most efficient? What do you enjoy doing? What are your biggest strong suits? Like, where are your superpowers so that you can orient the team around you? And then what do you not want to do, right? Like, if you're looking across the business and you cringe at the thought of certain operational tasks, or if you're like, I could do that, but like, ooh, like the thought of doing it just really drains you, try to unload those to somebody else. In terms of finding the right people, first off, keep in touch with the people in your career that have been great. And maybe you're right out of college, and so that doesn't as much apply to you. And I'll speak to that in a second. But almost every single hire that I've had or person that has come to work with me has worked with me or somebody that I trust and love and have worked with in the past myself that has validated that that person is excellent, right? The best people you're going to find, you should already know that they're great to work with because you really don't want to miss on hiring. I always hire slowly and they say fire fast. I feel like I'm still working on that, but it's so important, and it couldn't be truer for building a business because you want to find the right people before you bring them into your company because it's really hard to unwind. The other thing that I would say is if you're just out of college, you might have worked with people on team projects. You may have interned with somebody. You may also just find that you really get along well with someone and you guys are sort of yin to yang with one another. Um, Maybe you bring those types of people in. I also think just constantly filling your pipeline of potential people, like thinking about, okay, I might need this down the road. And if you're doing that, meeting with those people, telling them about your vision, bringing them along on that journey. And then when the time is right, you might be able to hire that dream person that you're like, this person is so out of reach. The other thing is that a lot of times those people that are so out of reach, they're so perfect for your business and that it's probably a dream job for them. if you are positioning it right and you're making the right role for them. So don't hesitate to reach out to those people and actually ask them, what do you need to come on board? You are the dream person to be within my company. And I would love to understand what it would take for you to become full time with me or to even work on a project with me. The third thing I would say is the project piece. I always like to have a date before, full time. And there's so many great contractors out there right now. And a lot of times people want freelance. And so it gives you both the opportunity to date each other and see how well you work together, even if there are sort of these preconceived notions that you might work great together. You never know until you actually get into the rhythm of the day to day. And sometimes you'll find that it's like somebody you thought was going to be an amazing fit ends up being a terrible fit just because culturally it doesn't work or they want different things for their future. And then other times you find like this person is the dream person and you both feel on the same page, like this is right. We work together so well and they can't imagine a future where they wouldn't come on full time. So it's really sort of those key things that I like to focus on, but and also enjoy the process of team building because it literally is the most important thing that you're going to do for your company. But also getting to know these amazing people that can come in and take your business to the next level should be really fun.
Yeah, I liked your advice of dating them before you hire them. We only have 3 minutes left. This is a question we've never received before, so I really wanted to ask it. And this one was from Helen M. How do you know who you can trust when you're just starting out and need advice without giving away your secrets? So how do you know who to trust, who to get advice from, who, maybe not to share the financials or, whatever it is? How do you navigate that when you're first building a brand? Rebecca, I'd love to start with you and then over to Allie.
I think unless you're inventing something that has like you're in the middle of the patent process, there's nothing that anyone's ever going to start that no one's never not heard of. So I think you're okay if you're with someone who's an expert in your arena and they're not a direct competitor to share with them what the idea is. And I would only ask people who you need a very specific piece of advice from that they haven't given on a podcast or in a book or at anything speaking, that that you're like, I'm missing, a supply chain partner, or what is the best technology for this? I think that if you're very targeted in your ask, you can sort of be a little bit Fabian in what your product is if you do think it is something that has never been done before and so original that you are at risk of stealing it. But in that case, then I would patent it so that you are protected. And I would say that, there are a lot of other brands that, they're in stealth mode. So they, people can also sign NDAs as well. And just make sure you're talking to targeted people, not just anyone and everyone.
Love that advice. What are your thoughts, Allie?
I would echo that. I would also say that I think a lot of times you assume that a company that is in roughly your same space could very easily stand up what you're creating. The fact of the matter is it's very tough to do that, right? Like for these, especially for corporations, there's a reason why they haven't incubated the product that you're creating because it takes the foresight, but also the team, the resources, and most likely if they're not doing it already or like midway through doing it and about to stand it up, then it's not going to happen. It's much harder than you actually think. I think that you miss out on networking and potential crucial advice for your business more than you would miss out on than you would have the likelihood of having somebody take your idea every single day, right? I would take that trade all the time. I'm going to be honest, we've actually had an idea stolen from us on multiple occasions. It was very frustrating. It wasn't our entire business model, but it was certainly stolen from us. The fact of the matter is, you're going to execute this better than the next person over. And when an idea was stolen from us, that business is now going out of business, right? So believe in yourself and your ability to build on and execute the vision that you have created better than anybody else that's out there. And if you don't, by the way, you're going to come up against so many other sort of minds in that field that are much bigger than somebody stealing your idea, that it would never have worked anyways.
I think that's great advice to end on. Believing in yourself. If you don't, that'll be the biggest thing that stands in your way, not someone, maybe stealing a secret or two. Thank you both. Allie, I know it's your spring break. Rebecca, I know you've got a busy schedule. Appreciate you both spending 45 minutes with us today. For more time with Allie and Rebecca, they're actually doing a more intimate version of this for members only inside of the 10th house, I believe in about 2 weeks. So if you haven't yet applied to join our health and wellness cohort, today is the last day. I'll go in and pop the link in the chat here right after I end this. But if you have any questions, email me, DM me on LinkedIn. Happy to answer any of your questions about the 10th house or link you with the right person who can help answer those. But we have such incredible office hours events where we bring in North advisors. Both Allie and Rebecca are advisors that you can set up one-on-one time with through the North. We bring them into the 10th house and do sessions with them. We have the CMO of Thrive Market coming in 2 days, which is really exciting. We have a conversation happening about alternatives to, institutional capital, multi-channel marketing. We have so many things happening inside of the community that are only for members that would love for you all to be a part of. We have pitch events, resources, replays, you name it, networking opportunities, we have it. So again, thank you both. Thank you everyone for your amazing questions. So happy to see everybody here today, and I'll see you all soon. Bye everyone.
Bye everyone.